Welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your marriage without your man's conscious effort so that you feel desired, taken care of, and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today's hot topic is married to an angry man, 3 mistakes wives make. My guest Rachel and her husband were getting divorced after 18 crazy years. She could not forgive him for his affairs, drug and alcohol issues. Then Rachel decided to read something that opened her eyes. The first time she tried the skills, it didn't work at all. But today her marriage is everything she ever wanted. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. That's all coming up. But first, let's talk about being married to an angry man, the 3 mistakes that wives make and what to do instead. Being married to an angry guy is definitely scary because it's unpredictable. It's only natural to make like a turtle and retreat into your shell because it can really hurt to get the brunt of his anger. Your brain works overtime thinking of ways to protect yourself, which is exhausting and stressful. It can also make you feel like you need to figure out how to keep him from getting angry, or that you need to be a buffer between him and your kids. Or it can make you feel like you just need to get out of your marriage entirely. It seems like the only solution is for him to work on his anger issues. Until then, nothing can improve. You just have to wait for that to happen and encourage him to definitely get some therapy or something. And if that's not happening, it can make you feel hopeless and powerless. That's what I used to think too. But it turns out I was making some mistakes that actually made the problem worse, not better. And I've discovered I'm not the only one. Lots of well-meaning wives have made these same 3 mistakes. Here they are, along with what to do instead so you can make your home feel peaceful, calm, and safe. Mistake number 1 when you're married to an angry man is walking on eggshells. I know this one probably seems like we've just landed in opposite world, because walking on eggshells or going out of your way to make sure you don't anger him more, or that he doesn't get angry, seems like what you absolutely should do if you're trying to keep things peaceful, right? I know, I thought so too. But trying to walk on eggshells means you're trying to control how he reacts. And anytime I'm trying to control someone else, it's pretty irritating. So irritating that it could actually make them mad. It's like trying to put out a fire with gas. Whenever I'm controlling, it's because I'm afraid. So if I'm afraid he's going to blow up and I show up with that fearful body language and that look on my face, it's a message to him that says, I think you're going to get upset, which ironically can be very upsetting. So what should you do instead of walking on eggshells, which, let's face it, can't be done anyway? Well, one idea is to ask yourself these 2 powerful questions. Number 1, how do I feel? And number 2, what do I want? The answer to how do I feel might be, I feel scared or nervous. I'm about to get hurt, or maybe afraid. So that's vital information you need to have about yourself so that you can answer this next question. What do I want? And that will depend on you. Only you know what you might want right then. Maybe it's to do something to care for yourself, like to take a bath or go for a walk, or maybe to get takeout for dinner or shop for shoes online. Sometimes when I'm scared, it's because I'm trying to get my own attention. Fine, you might be thinking, but then what if he does blow up? Isn't that going to make him even madder that I'm just shopping for shoes online? That leads me to the next common mistake, mistake number 2, when you're married to an angry man, which is depriving him of oxygen. I thought my husband was angry because he just had problems, probably from childhood, that he would have to work on for a long, long time in therapy. But it turns out I was depriving him of oxygen, by which I mean respect. I was depriving him of respect. Now, I thought I was respectful, very respectful, but I wasn't. I was picking on him all the time without realizing it. Comedian Steve Trevino does a bit that explains this really well. He talks about how he didn't want to get married. He says, no man woke up one day and was like, when I'm tired of making my own decisions, I would like to be questioned all the time about everything I do. And then he mimics his wife saying, why did you park there? And Steve says, I can't take it. I lose it. Fine. Tell me where you want me to park, boss. And then she says, oh my God, you're mad. You have anger problems. Steve says he parks that car by himself all the time and he never gets mad. He never asks himself why he parked there when he's by himself. So he thinks it must be her. And this is a great example of what my marriage used to look like, where I'd question him and I would think it was harmless, but really I was questioning his competence, which would make him mad. So these days, instead of questioning how he does things, I figure out what it is that I want. And I express that as in, I would love to park closer to the store. I'm not questioning his judgment, which would be disrespectful, but I'm just giving him information about what I desire. And the next question that comes up is, why do I care exactly where we park? And I sometimes wonder that. I mean, who knows? But if I do, it's up to me to communicate what I desire instead of just questioning why he did things. Mistake number 3 when you're married to an angry man is trying to get him to stop being angry. Never works, right? When you're scared because you know that your husband is angry, it's the most automatic thing in the world to try to get him to stop, maybe interrupting him or walking away or rolling your eyes, just letting him know this is not acceptable. And you always have those options because you are the expert on your own life. But if you're wanting to mix things up a little bit the next time he gets angry, one way to do it is by just listening. Just listening without interrupting, even if he's yelling. It can be scary, especially if he's mad at you. But listening can be a powerful tonic for anger. Sometimes people get mad because they don't feel heard. I did this with my dad one time. He had a habit of getting really worked up about politics and going on a diatribe. He'd yell and pound the table and go on and on. And I am not proud to say that my reaction was to dismiss him. I would try to interrupt or change the subject, and he just got louder and more determined to make his political points until the day I decided to just listen. I still wasn't interested in his political viewpoints, but I am interested in him. So I just sat there looking at him attentively. And when he paused, I said, I hear you, or, and that was it. And then something amazing happened. He stopped all by himself. He calmed himself down, and he hasn't gone on a political rant since that time. But if he did, I'd know it means he just wants to be heard. And there's nothing I need to do about it but listen. He just wants to be heard and seen and understood like all of us. Of course, listening is easier said than done, especially if he's hurling insults or swearing at you or at the kids. When that happens, a powerful response is to honor yourself by simply saying, ouch, and leaving the room. Or just ouch if you're stuck in the car, for example. It feels ridiculously vulnerable to say ouch. But if you are courageous enough to say it without defending or offending in the process, you give him the space to hear only his own conscience and see that he has hurt the woman he loves most in the world. And that is not what he intends. And your vulnerability is a powerful reminder that he loves to be your protector, not your antagonizer. You have the power to remind him to be the best version of himself when you show up as the best version of yourself. Something big is happening here on the Laura Doyle campus, and you are invited. Hundreds of women have become experts on the 6 intimacy skills and transformed their marriages by becoming certified Laura Doyle relationship coaches who live their purpose, have more intimacy, and earn for their families. In my free masterclass, Purpose, Prosperity, and Intimacy, How to Have All Three and Help Others Do the Same, I share directly from our popular relationship coach training and certification course about the number one most important qualification for becoming a successful relationship coach. I also reveal the indispensable first step to having a passionate, peaceful relationship and how to share it with other women. I explain about why our coaches have an unfair advantage over other relationship coaches and counselors. And I go step by step through our proven coaching curriculum and why it's so effective in saving marriages and empowering coaches. Register today for Purpose, Prosperity, and Intimacy. Have all three and help others do the same at lauradoyle.org/purpose. That's lauradoyle.org/purpose. My guest Rachel and her husband were getting divorced after 18 crazy years. She could not forgive him for his affairs, his drug and alcohol issues. And then Rachel decided to read something that opened her eyes. The first time she tried the skills, it didn't work at all. But today, her marriage is everything she ever wanted. She's going to tell us how she did it so you can do it too. Rachel, thank you for coming on the Empowered Wife podcast. I'm so excited to hear your story today.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. So excited. Thank you for the honor and the privilege to be here.
Oh. Well, take us back to the bad old days. Tell us what it was like.
Oh my goodness. So my husband and I were 9.5 years apart. He's 9.5 years older than me. And I was so excited to marry him. I remember the feeling of when we got married at this amazing, wonderful, like I literally could not, I was excited about getting married as I am on this podcast. And I was just so excited and I could not wait for our life together. And of course, a lot of that, I was very young, naive. I had no experience with addiction. I had no experience with actually ever being submissive in any part of the word. And my marriage was so bad that when a year would roll around, I was so numb that I would just say, I can't believe I'm still here. And a birthday would roll around and I'm like, I've got to do something new. I can't do this to myself anymore. And so where I went from that point to that point is that through all of our marriage, there was just constant drama from drug and alcohol addiction. My husband couldn't get any time under his belt. And I had absolutely, till he finally made it into a 12-step program, I had absolutely no idea. The biggest issue here was me. And I was thinking this whole time that the biggest issue was him. And it consumed my life, my obsession. I heard one time where it says I made, all I could do was I wanted God to be people and I wanted to be God. And that was me. And I could not get myself off the throne of my own life. And it cost me my health. It cost me my sanity. For more exact details, we had a large, despite all those issues that were going on a consistent basis, I was an extreme controller. So I can see why your skills didn't work the first time on me. And it was awful. I basically underlined your entire book. And oh my gosh. And I listened to it.
Are we twins separated at birth, Rachel, you think?
Yes, the milkman.
Yeah, the milkman. Exactly.
And I listened to it 9.5 times before I could even begin to understand, like, okay, I think I can do this. So anyway, I'm getting that sidetracked. But the main thing was we had a series of traumas in our family. In 2017, our daughter was involved in a car accident, sustained a traumatic brain injury, completely changed our life. And she moved away from home with that injury. As a result of that, threw my other daughter into depression. And she became suicidal, became addicted to drugs. We went through the whole thing again with her. Then right after that, we filed for a bankruptcy. And it just on and on. And that's what my son was born into, my 8-year-old now. And just this chaos and this dysfunction and this control. And I was so stressed out. My kidneys were shutting down. I was in a hospital. And I had to put my daughter in a mental health institution for like a lockdown, like a psych ward for a week, because I couldn't watch her. I couldn't take care of her. And I didn't know what to do. I had been living this whole time just treading water. And I thought this whole entire time that self-care was only working my recovery program. And I just couldn't get ahead. And I remember just that feeling of being in my own prison and not ever being able to get out and not having any hope. And I got, when things really, really were bad, my husband, he was so withdrawn. He never would come out to play. He just was this angry person. And now I can see they were mirroring me. And
but you didn't know this.
I didn't know that. I didn't know.
I just thought he was an angry, moody person. And
I didn't know.
I mean, you had this evidence, like he's got an addiction to drugs and alcohol. So that's a scary thing, right? This is like, of course you can't let your guard down. Of course you got to be in control.
Yes.
Because he is not. Yeah. I mean, that's a big challenge. So I don't know. I just wanted to, I don't know. I felt like I needed to interject my own, just empathy for your, how scary it was, right? It
was scary. Super scary. It was very scary. And I was hyper vigilant over my children. I was super controlling. I lived in a constant state of fear. Constantly angry. It was awful. It was just a prison. And even though I got relief from my 12-step program, I was never completely free. And it wasn't until my husband, honestly, being married to me, I can't believe he hadn't had an affair sooner. Honestly, I'm not condoning it, but I was very abusive to him, thinking I was being loving, it went way beyond mothering. And he just could never win in our home. And so I knew when I got into a 12-step program for this affair and numerous other things like that, I knew that I had something here. For the first time in my life, I could identify with something that could help me. And I had a friend one day call me. How I found you is I had a friend one day call me, and she said, "Rachel, you have got to get this book." And she was telling me all about it and how her marriage was changing. And she was so excited. And I trusted her that she knew what was best for her life. And I trusted our friendship. And I said, "I'll read the book." I read the book and I could not put it down. I was like, oh my God, it took such a mirror and put it up to my face and really showed me the kind of woman that I'd become. And it not only did it do that, it gave me hope and it showed me a way out. But I really didn't believe it. I really felt like our marriage was like too far gone. Like it was like my life was such a manageability. It didn't matter what I did. It just kept going backwards. And so I decided to go ahead. Like I told you, I got it on Audible and I read it 9.5 times. And I decided, I went out and I got this book right here. And this is called my miracle book. And I'm on my second one. This is my first one. It's all filled up with miracles that would have never have happened. And I started it. And my first journal entry is on February 25th. And I'm just going to read this to you, if this is okay.
Sure.
It's not very long. Let me see.
February 25th of what year?
Of 21,
Okay.
of 2021. I'll say. Okay. This is my first journal entry. I said, Scott, the reason I married you, you were one in a million to me. I just knew your boyish smile. You were so funny and fun, great at troubleshooting. The first time that we kissed, it was like the first time. I saw a brother, a believer, a friend, someone to build a foundation and legacy with. I'll never forget you when you told me that you love me. And I just wrote a little story. I was so excited. And I put that in the beginning of my journal to remember.
Your miracle journal.
And my miracle journal. And I put that in there. And then I wrote the action because I have to have an action that goes with it. And I wrote him at this point in time in our marriage. We were separated. We were in-house separation. I had filed for a divorce. I had the papers, waiting to do the terms and everything. And he was in another room when I started this journal. And we'd been apart for a while. And so that was my first journal entry. And then the action behind it is I went and I wrote him a little note that said, I miss you, that I'd heard on your podcast from another podcast. And I went and I wrote it, and he threw it so hard in the trash. Like, how hard do you have to throw a little Post-it to get it to the bottom of the trash? That's pretty hard. And he threw it so hard. And I did that twice. And I called my friend crying. I'm like, this doesn't work. This is never going to work. And she goes, Rachel, just keep going. Then I walked in on him. Then I walked on him acting out one time. We were separated, and I went right back. Called my friend right back. And I'm like, I'm done with this Laura Doyle. She doesn't know anything. I was like, so bad.
Yeah.
And
Understandable. Right.
And she helped me, and she helped me write a script, and I stuck to the script, and things began to turn around for us.
Wow. Okay. So I have so many questions. So one question is, it sounds so painful. You're separated. There's been affairs and the drinking and the drugs, and you are in so much pain that you decide to file for divorce. And yet you buy this journal, this book, so that you can write down your miracles. And the first thing you write is this beautiful, like you found your faith about why you married him. And where did you get how would you do that? How is that possible?
Well, in your book where it talks about, that's the first thing I did, is because, like I was saying, that your book just held a mirror to my heart and showed me the contempt that I had in my heart for another person. And I realized once I started doing your gratitudes and just started really working through the skills, doing the 3 gratitudes every day to him, I started doing them to God. I started doing them to myself. And the more I began to do those gratitudes, it just, like you said, it just continued to attract it and build my awareness of what I had. And all of a sudden I saw this man. It was like he was living with me the entire time, but I couldn't see him. And he was right there, and he loved me, and he wanted to make me happy and do things for me. I just couldn't believe it. And I definitely couldn't receive.
But I'm so impressed that you chose your faith and decided to start. I mean, it takes something to change your focus. You had a lot of years of focusing on what was wrong. There was plenty wrong. And you were suffering and you were sad. So I think it's really hard to reach for that. So it's kind of seems like a superpower that you were able to find that gratitude. So, okay. But he didn't like the I miss you note. Yeah, that didn't work. Right. And then how did he respond to all this gratitude you started giving him?
He was bait.
He didn't trust it, it sounds like.
No. Okay. Just baiting me. And because I had a lot of resistance, that's what made it really hard, because I was trying 100%, and I just wasn't like, it was almost like a breakthrough, but that it was like, boom, right back at me, and I'm like, okay. And so that's why I wanted to keep quitting.
Yeah.
But it was like something was changing in me. And the biggest thing that was changing in me was my idea of self-care and how I'm responsible for making myself happy. And all of a sudden, my self-care went from externals and things that I liked while I was doing them, but all of a sudden they started changing into internal things, connecting to God, connecting to others, and most of all, connecting to myself. And when I began to do those things, I was like on a different level. It wouldn't matter. All of a sudden, like the obsession began to lift. The awareness of what I had, I began to live out of vulnerability and out of an open heart. And it didn't matter what he did because my actions weren't going to change. And I quit doing things for another person. I began to do them for me. And yeah.
What kinds of things did you do to connect, you said, with other people and with God and with yourself? Like, how would you do that?
Well, I started for the first thing is one thing I started realizing on my journey was that as soon as I, like you suggest in your book, like when people, dropping 10 gratitudes, looking for the other side, turning it around, I was such a negative person. Like I needed way more help than that. And so what I would do is, in my journal, I started writing every single day. So this takes 30 to 45 minutes a day. And so what I would start putting in there is, because I really am a full-time job. And so I would start writing in there like at least 10 things that I was grateful to God for that had happened that day, not like general things like that I could receive that day. Then 10 things about myself that I was gratitude, then 10 things toward my spouse, then 10 things toward my family. Then I would just really start practicing because I couldn't receive criticism, couldn't receive money, couldn't receive compliments. And I sure wasn't going to receive any type of sexual activity from my husband. And so I had to get myself in a position where I was ready for that to happen. So I had to act as if. So I started writing in my journal all the things I'd received that day, as many as I could remember, from the doorman helping me on. And then I would go back and I would try to feel the feeling of what it felt like when someone acknowledged me. Like when you are telling me what a good job I'm doing, I can feel that all the way through my body now. Before I could only hear it here. Now I can feel it in my heart and all through my body. I can feel how good that feels to be acknowledged because I had to practice. Because I was bad. And after I do the receiving part, then I went back and felt it. Then I had to go back and look at what I was receiving that didn't belong to me. And I was receiving still a lot of things that weren't my problem. And I had to let those things go and make an amends to myself for receiving things that didn't even belong to me.
Like what?
Like, for example, like when my husband, when I didn't know what getting on your page was, or when I was learning how to say ouch, or when I couldn't quite hear the heart message yet, what was behind what he was telling me. And so I would receive what he would say to me. So for example, he would come into the house and if dinner wasn't on the table, or if it wasn't something how he liked, I would take on his expression, or what, even if he said like a slight little comment or something, or he sighed, I would take that on and receive that. That wasn't mine to receive. That's none of my business. And so I had to start letting that stuff go. And that taking that time at the end of the day to really look at what I was receiving and what I didn't need to receive really helped me. And then I started just also getting in the practice of, in addition to the receiving part, just like really like writing my desires in my book every day. What do I need? What do I want? All that stuff, writing all that, keeping it there. And then the last thing was I kept like a book, like a running journal of like those self-fulfilling prophecies, turning all those challenges in my life and flipping them around and saying what I wanted. And then because the receiving was there, the gratitude was there, they're just coming.
Oh my gosh. Those desires are just arriving, right? The universe is rearranging itself. And what kinds of desires did you notice were getting fulfilled?
Well, one of them was I heard a lady tell me one time, she goes, you need to have a place where you can go that you can do all your crying and all your praying and all your whatever you want to do and put your time into it. And so I'm actually in this room right now. And this is one of my very first self-fulfilling prophecies that came true that my husband did for me. This is, I don't know. I don't have any lights on. I don't know if you can see it. It's like a light teal, mint green. I just love that color.
Beautiful.
And there's lights. I just love it in here. It's just, I come in and I just feel wonderful.
This is like for Rachel's solitude and for your journaling, for your for your private thoughts and prayers. And this, so you expressed this desire to your husband and he made it so.
Yep.
Well, just like that.
Yep.
Was that hard to receive?
Oh yeah, I wanted to jump in and help him. I wanted to jump in and help him and do all that. And so, but I just let it go and let him do what he wanted. He wasn't able to finish the whole thing, so I was able to finish it, but he did what he could.
Yeah.
And my husband was kind of like in the counseling world, was like a intimacy anorexic and wouldn't come to me at all, wouldn't like anything. And he completely changed. He's completely, I don't go to him. We meet together. He comes to me and we meet together. And he's excited about our marriage. He's excited about our life. We were all baptized in church a few weeks ago. He's, just an incredible leader.
Wow. So it sounds like the passion has really increased in your marriage, skyrocketed maybe from what it was. How fun. We all want that. And I also hear him renewing his faith and becoming more of a spiritual leader. It sounds like that's something you've wanted probably for a long time. Is that fair to say? Okay.
Yeah.
But it also indicates that you have created that space in your family and been maybe more receptive to his leadership. Do I have that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, this is amazing. So, all right. So what about the addiction stuff though? Because that was and what about the affairs? Like what happened?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Laura, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that.
So, oh my gosh. So when I turn my focus 100% on myself, and I made it a choice and a decision that I was going to do this. And I was going to do this program for a year, no matter what happened at all. And I focused on that, on letting go. That was my goal, is to focus on being good at these skills. That was my goal. It wasn't anything to do with him. And when I did that, it took, first of all, it created the safety. It took the power out of shame. And it placed it into empowerment, where he was the expert on his own life. And he could say, wow, this is really wrong. And he came to me and he came to me with what was going on. And he said, I can't do this anymore. And here's another thing. It didn't happen all at once. It was little thing. It was very indicative of what I was doing. He mirrored me. And here's the thing. I could not give any oxygen to anything, any power at all to the past. And because of all these skills, what they did for me is they developed trust within myself, which developed my trust in God. And I knew that he would provide for me and take care of me all the way through. And if there was something, this wasn't denial. Denial is ignoring there's a problem. This is my choice how I'm going to direct that problem. And the most beautiful thing was I made so many amends. Like I really tried to stay as clean as I could. And when our daughter was in a rehab, I've made 3 really big ones. And when our daughter was in a rehab, it was April 11th of last year. April 1st of last year was her graduation. A week before her graduation, I'd always had a secret bank account. And I went to my husband and I told him, everybody's out in the car waiting for me. Everybody's out in the car. I didn't know how I was going to do this. I didn't know, like, oh my gosh, I got to do it right now. I got to do it now. And I went and got this money. I had it in the other room and I went and got it. And I said, I need to talk to you for a second. He goes, well, we got to go. I'm like, I really need to talk to you. And we're standing there and I take his hand and I tell him, Scott, I said, I have to give you this. I've had a secret bank account this whole time and I'm so sorry for disrespecting you. I gave him the money, put the money in his hand. And then I'm just plagiarizing off of all of these podcasts. Literally, none of this is my original thought because I cannot trust myself at this point to talk. So it has to be like a script. And so I'm like, I tell him, I said, I don't ever want you to see this judgment from me again. I need you to know, I need to know where I can walk behind you and beside you and with you. And I want you, you've never been able to win in our home. And I know that you love me and you keep our family in the forefront of your mind. And what else did I tell him? Oh yeah. And I said, I am choosing to trust you. And I know that you're going to clean up. I know that you're going to clean up the sex addiction. I know that you're going to clean it up and I'm choosing and I'm expecting the best. And I know you would never want to hurt me. And he's, like he's crying. And I give him the money. Come to find out, he takes me to the bedroom, pulls the picture off the wall. He's hiding $10,000 behind the picture. He's been hiding money too.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. But you went first and then he came clean about the money he was hiding also. Wow. So you both had these funds. And did you feel like it was like a getaway fund? I mean, you were contemplating divorce. Was that like your, and so you gave him your getaway fund. So now you're really stuck. And then he revealed like, oh yeah, actually we're richer than we thought. Cause here you go. Here's his 10,000. How cool. So exciting. What a great moment. What a very vulnerable and courageous and humble thing to say to him, Rachel. So that's really impressive. And so and what is your relationship like now?
Our relationship right now is like, it's not perfect, just like nothing else is. But it is so the opposite of what it was, because it doesn't depend, my happiness doesn't depend on him. We're like, I feel like for the first time that we're together, I'm not asking him what he wants. There's not like this codependency factor anymore. Like I'm busy doing what I need to do for me. And I'm busy, like my whole primary purpose of life has changed. And where I used to look at, I hated being a stay-at-home mom. I hated taking care of my kids. I mean, I like taking care of my kids, but I couldn't get away from my own pain. And I love to make our home a sanctuary and just to be like, just show up like how I was supposed to show up with no burdens because they don't belong to me.
Wow. Yeah, you sound very empowered. You sound very free and excited. You sound excited about your life now.
Yeah.
Wow. So cool. How would you say going through this incredible transformation has impacted your kids?
Oh, big time. My 8-year-old, we used to have a power struggle all the time. And now if we have a power struggle, it's because I'm overtired and I haven't taken care of myself. And as soon as I apologize to my 8-year-old, we go, I'm really sorry for disrespecting you for doing this. He's like, yeah, it's all right, Mom. Yeah, it's cool.
Oh, he like takes that right in. He just receives like, okay, thanks.
Yeah, we have a great relationship. My daughters and I, my middle daughter has chosen to continue to use, but we would never have even had a relationship if it hadn't been for these skills. Like we can still, she knows she's in the wrong and it's her time. She's got to figure it out. She's she's on her own journey and we can still love her. My oldest daughter, she calls to see, like, she's not to the point where she can talk to me yet, but I know that she knows things are changing because she hears it from the grapevine. So I know that I know it's just a matter of time, and I just get out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's, it's, I really love you sound very determined. Like you're just patient. Like, I know what I'm doing and we'll just see, how everybody responds to that. I'm kind of wanting someone to like acknowledge, like, yeah, you've completely changed, but it sounds like you didn't really get that you haven't gotten that from your daughters yet, but maybe someday in the future, it sounds like, but they'll
No.
get on that. Yeah. And what is your tip to somebody who is where you were, where it seems completely hopeless? She's thinks she wants a divorce. There's sex addiction, there's drugs, alcohol issues. It's completely hopeless. But she wants what you have now, where there's this beautiful connection and intimacy, and you feel like your husband wants to be your hero by giving you, your special solitude room. And there's this kind of sharing where you're like, I hid money. Yeah, so did I. And you both can kind of laugh and cry together. And she's wanting that, and she's wanting this great, especially the relationship with your 8-year-old just sounds so amazing, right? Who apologizes to their 8-year-old? Well, you do, right? So, what's your best tip for someone who wants what you have?
My gosh, there's so much. But I guess I would say, to someone that was like that, just constantly treading water, I would tell her she's not alone. I would tell her there's so much hope. And I would tell her to give it a year. And a year might look too much, but just maybe all she can do is give it 5 minutes. And I would start, if I was talking to that person again, I would start by just it's the surrender. It's the surrender of I can't. And then when I know I can't, then I know, for me, I knew God could, and then I knew I had to let him. And I let him through these skills. And through people like you, I would let, having that search and rescue team, and you can't do this alone. You can't do this alone. And so that was the main thing for me, is getting out of myself. And how I get out of myself as I get into action. And how I get into action is I have to make myself accountable. And once I make myself accountable, then I have verifiable evidence and proof that not only am I not the solution, but I can help myself get out of this by doing specific actions. And so I would just, that would be my encouragement. I hope that's not too all over the place, but because we just think we're alone. I just felt so alone and
Absolutely.
hopeless.
Absolutely. And what program were you in, Rachel, or what are programs?
Yeah, I'm in the Ridiculously Happy Wife group right now. I joined in September and I started coming.
Gotcha.
And I just love it. Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I love it.
What would you say to Rachel if you could go back in time and tell her what you know now? What would you say?
I love this question. I would tell Rachel that she is worth more than diamonds, and that the answer lies within her, and that the best gift that she could ever give herself would be subtraction and not addition. And that everything she needs to know can be learned.
Beautiful. And now here you are standing here having learned so much, and being able to look back at the previous version, the younger version of Rachel, who didn't know so many things. And I think your answer is just beautifully compassionate and empathetic and loving. Did you ever think you'd be here coming on a show really to take a victory lap about how great your marriage is now from where you were?
No, I can never I could never imagine that. And that's my vision, is to really, because the rate of divorce in spiritual or in churches is exact same as unchurched people. And I would love to take this message to other women. And I don't know what that would look like yet, but I would love to do that. That would just be an honor.
Sounds like you're going to become a coach in the future.
Yeah.
You're going to come to coach training. I love it. Well, and you really have those qualifications because you have the transformation that's possible. So you are that sort of that lighthouse, right? That beacon of hope for other women who are still suffering and thinking that there's no hope for them. So thank you so much for sharing this incredibly inspiring story with us today, Rachel. It's really amazing what you've accomplished.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. It's just, I couldn't even wait. I literally was so excited, just like I was when I was getting married.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad we get to be on this journey together. It is like the most exciting thing that I can think of, to really learn how to love and be loved in return. And that's what you've done.
Oh, well, I think you're so amazing, Laura. Thank you for everything, the gift that you keep giving to us. I think that's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel.
If you'd like to be my guest on the Empowered Wife podcast and share about how you fixed a struggling relationship using the 6 intimacy skills, I would love to interview you. Just go to lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest to let me know that you are willing to make a big contribution to ending world divorce by telling your relationship story. I look forward to meeting you. That's lauradoyle.org/podcast-guest. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, I'll share an exciting update on the mission to end world divorce. And in the meantime, I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that the part of my workout that got me the most out of breath this morning, that was putting on my new workout pants.